Hey everybody, it's James here, and we have something a little bit different for the channel today. Today it is a scrap or junk silver purchase. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, CAD Roll Hunter. That's right, today we're going to look through a scrap silver purchase that I just made, and I have $22.50 in face value here. I've got 50-cent pieces, I've got quarters, I've got dimes. You can see there's some laureate portrait, there's some King George V, there's King George VI, all sorts of goodies. So I figure we'll get in here and we'll take a look at what we've got, see if we've found any better dates. I don't think we're gonna see anything significantly rare in here. I mean, I think my silver dealer is pretty good at picking out the good stuff. But what we'll do is look and see exactly what we can get at scrap value. All right, well, let's see what we got. Let's get it out here. I love the sound of silver. And you can see we got some bright and shiny BU coins. We've got some pretty tarnished and filthy coins. There's one that's pretty black there. What I'm going to do is separate them out by denomination, and then we'll separate them out by year. We'll have a look at what we got, and we'll see if we got any variations, particularly these 50-cent pieces. The last digit was hand punched, so you can find some that are like a near one or a far one. We'll take a look together and see what we got. All right, well, first I've got them sorted out by denomination and then also by the ruler at the time. So we'll start with the dimes, just to a little bit of an overview. So we have 16 King George V dimes, 8 King George VI, and 6 Queen Elizabeth II. In the quarters, there's 6 King George V and 4 King George VI, and just 2 Elizabeth dimes. And then in the 50-cent pieces, we've got one pretty slick King George V. We'll have to work really hard to get a date on that thing for sure. And we've got 32 King George VI 50-cent pieces. We've got 2 laureate portrait Elizabeths, and then one of the crowned portrait in, or the tiara in 1963. You can see there it's a BU, real goodie there. And so I aired when I first said I had $22.50. I've actually got $24 in face value. So what I think we'll do is we'll start with the dimes and we'll sort them out by year, get a bit of an overview of what we got at scrap silver prices, and see if there's anything on the better end of the scale with what we have here. And then we'll move on to the quarters and the 50 cents. Okay, starting with the King George V dimes, we got a 1921. And we got a couple of 1929s. We got a 1930, a 31, a couple of 32s, and a couple of 33s. And as I focus in on that one, with the naked eye, it almost looks like it says 23. But when I put it under the scope, you can see pretty clearly that that is a 33. It's just got a lot of gunk and wear on it. Got a few 1936s here, and the 33 is the lowest mintage of this group. That's about 670 plus thousand. Some of them are minted at several million. And then I have 4 over here that I couldn't easily get a date off of. And I think these first 2, if I worked really hard, I could get something. This one is a 1920 something. And this one, in just the right light, I can get a little bit of the numbering, but you can see it's pretty worn. And it doesn't really matter too much. Whatever they are, they're not going to be worth anything more than just the silver value. So that's what we got, a pretty good selection of dates. Definitely some album filler or collection filler if anybody was looking to try to get some early years through scrap silver. I'll look through the other 2 piles of dimes here, and we'll come right back and let you see what we got. All right, and moving on to our George VI, we got a 1941, a 1944, a 45. We got 3 1947 Maple Leaf. Those were minted in 1948. And 2 1949s. And for our Queen Elizabeth, We got 3 gorgeous BU 1961s. We got a 63, a 64, and we got a really nice looking 66 as well. All right, we'll move on to our quarters and we'll see what we got there. Okay, I got our quarters all sorted out here, and the one on the left here is dateless. I tried and I can't see a date on that at all. But the one next to it, we got a 1920, we got a 29, and a couple of 30s, and a 1935. This 20 has the most amount of detail. And if I flip it over, it's still pretty slick. You can see most of King George is off, has been sort of worn down. So there's no detail on the band of the crown. That's what we would expect in these scrap silver purchases. These are all pretty slick. So they're not going to be, coins you're going to want to grade or anything like that. They're probably AG or G at best. And here into the King George VI, you see we got a 38, which is pretty awesome. A 1940, a 48, that's about 2.5 million minted. It's a bit lower mintage, but not as rare as some of the other denominations, the 48s. Got a 49. And in our Queen Elizabeth, we've got a really gorgeous BU 1963 there. And we've got a 1966 with some kind of tarnishing on it. And this one, of course, is the laureate portrait of the Queen, but you can see, look at the finish on that. That's pretty awesome. And then we've got the different portrait. This one's got a little bit of wear on it. But all told, I think we got some great coins to add to our silver stack here. Next, we'll look at our 50 cents. Well, before I got into those 50-cent pieces, I figured I should check my album because I thought that some of my quarters were in pretty bad shape in this era, and it turns out I was right. So I just flipped up these ones on the left that we just got in our scrap purchase. So there's our 30, and this was the 1930 that I had in my album. You can see it's in far worse condition. This 29 here is definitely an upgrade from this 29, and if I flip this guy over, you can see that this had all sorts of problems on it, but it was the best one I had. And then the same thing here with this 1920. Was just a better strike and a better condition than this 1920 that I had from in my collection already. So I feel like even just buying some scrap silver at melt prices, I've improved my collection already. So it always pays to look back. I might do the same thing with the dimes. I've got them stacked up over there to go in the tubes, but I think I should probably just check and make sure I don't have one or two of those that are in atrocious condition in my collection. All right, the first of our 50-cent pieces, as we call them here in Canada, and I know my American friends would refer to their 50-cent coins as half dollars, but the first one here, this George V, you can see it's got quite a ding on the rim, but there's no way we're going to get a date off of that. I've tried to scope it. I've tried to see if I could make out anything, and I can't quite. It's just a little too slick, but that is silver anyway for our stack. So let's take a peek and see what we've got here. We've got a 38, a 40. We got a stack of 4 1941s and 4 1942s. This means we're going to be able to look for some varieties, those near and far last digits. Got a 43. We got a stack of 4 44s. A few 45s. We got 4 46s. We've got 4 50s, 2 51s, and 4 1952s. So we're going to get in and take a peek and see what we've got. It's really great that we got at least one in the 30s here, which is great. There's still actually a lot of detail on King George's the head. There's some discoloration and such, but I love these. These are my favorite Canadian coins, these with the early coat of arms here. So I'm going to just take a peek at these 41s and let you know if we've found anything interesting. All right, I got our 4 41s all lined up, and as I took a closer look, all of them are the wide date variety, where the 4 and the 1 are actually fairly apart. You can see I've got quite the spectrum on the color scale here, from bright and shiny, but this one, of course, has a big ding on the corner, to pretty dark and tarnished. But what we're looking at, of course, I'm going to put this under the scope and we can take a peek, is just how much space there is between the 4 and the 1. They're all pretty much like this. So this 1 was hand punched. The 194 was one part of the die. This was punched into the die separately. And so there are just different varieties on different dies. The 1 is much, much closer to the 4. All of ours look pretty much the same here. And if you've got a good guide like the Charlton guide, you can see they give you varieties of what the near dates and the far dates would look like. And you can see that what I've got here is the far dates. So we'll look at the 42s. All of the dates in the 40s, or pretty much all of them, and the early 50s have these varieties. Okay, I've scoped our 42s, and interestingly enough, they are all also the same variety. They're all the wide date. And what we're looking at here is how close, of course, the 2 is to the 4. And the narrow date, the 2 is very close, like almost nudging up or almost inside the 4 here. But the easiest way to tell is that the hoof of this animal, it looks like it's a unicorn, I think, over on the right, is actually almost into the 2 on the wide 2s. So we didn't get any varieties here. The last time I did a scrap purchase, I found lots of varieties that I didn't have. In better conditions, it's the wide date in these 2 years, 41 and 42, that are the more valuable. But at these conditions, of course, these just fetch scrap price. We only have the 143 to look at, and this one's also the wide date, or also known as the far 3. There is another variation of this one, and that is a double die, a 3/3. You would see the 3 on the other side here. It's in this condition, it's really hard to tell. I don't think it is just looking at it. It's possible, but in this condition, there's really no way to know. So at least we know it's the wide date or far 3 variety. All right, I got a 44 under the scope here, and all of our 44s are the wide date variety, but I'm really excited because we actually found a triple 4, like a triple die variety. So they all look like the one I just showed you, but I'm going to show you this one here. This is the wide 4, or the wide date 4/4/4. So what we're looking at here is at the base of the 4 is evidence of the die being tripled, essentially. So we can see part of a 4 over here. We can see the main 4, and then part of another 4 below it. And I just had to refresh my browser. And so this is the 1944 wide date 4/4/4 variety. And if I look in my Charlton guide, you can see what we're looking at here. And that's what we've got here, where you can see right here that the remnants of that other 4. So that's really exciting. Okay, we have 3 1945s to look at, and I think we've got 2 of the 3 varieties. The 45, like some of the other years, has a narrow date and a wide date variety. The wide date ones, there's a version where the 5 came to a blunt end instead of a pointed end, and we'll take a look right now and see. So I'll scope them out here. This is the narrow date pointed 5, so you can see how close the 4 and the 5 are, and you can see that it comes to a pretty narrow point right here. This next one is the same variety. You can see how close that 4 and the 5 are. This 5 also comes to a pointed end. This next one is a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to tell, but that 4 and the 5, despite some of the discoloration there, are not nearly as close together as the other one. So this is the wide date pointed 5 variety. So I'm just taking a look at our 1946s, and again, there's a narrow date and a wide date. I got a narrow date here on the screen, and we have ourselves, if I pull out one of the other ones here to look at, also a wide date. You can see that 6 is much further away from the 4. The other rare variety that people look for is what they call the hoof through the 6. And it's actually a die crack that comes all the way through the 6, and it looks like that hoof extends through the 6. It's not actually the hoof, but that's what it's colloquially known as. We didn't find it here, unfortunately, and of course we wouldn't expect to see that in a scrap metal purchase, but it's just fun to check out these varieties. We've got four 1950s to look at, and there are three variations in this one as well, but not having to do with the wide date or the narrow date. It has more to do with how much of the design is visible in the zero. What we're looking for here is how much of this design appears within the zero. And there's three variations: full design, partial design, and no design. And of the four 1950s that we got here, it looks like we've got three that are the full design. So you can see that here. This next one is also the full design. This one here is also the full design. And then I think this last one we could say is the partial design. You can see that the lines in the middle aren't as strong. This particular coin isn't in the greatest condition, but that area within the zero is pretty protected from wear. And so it looks like we've got the two more common varieties. The no design in the zero is the one that is more rare, but we don't have that here. Now, I just picked these out more or less at random when I went to my silver dealer, but we were really fortunate because I got a lot of varieties here. Again, the 51, I've got a narrow date here, and our second one, as we bring it up, is the wide date. That one is quite a bit further away from the one, so it's a little bit hard to tell with the naked eye, so I just grabbed a lot of these 40s and 50s coins to add to my stack and for us to look at together. But we really did luck out. So it makes me think that if you go and do a silver scrap purchase as well, you can have a lot of fun looking for varieties, and you'll probably find some things that you might not have in your collection. Of our four 1952s, we also got both varieties. You can see here on the screen, I've got the narrow date. That too is really close to the 5. And I'll just bring it up here so we can get another good look at this just beautiful design, the coat of arms here, which is my favorite. And I'll just throw another one under the scope. This one's got lots of mint luster still, and you can see how much further away that too is. So we got 3 of the wide dates and 1 of the narrow dates. We only got one 1953, so we're not going to find multiple variations, but there are several different things to look for here. The most notable is whether there's a shoulder fold or no shoulder fold. And you would see that along the shoulder of Queen Elizabeth here. This is the no shoulder fold version. Although it's really hard to tell with a circulated or worn coin like this one to really tell. However, what you can more easily see is by the lettering, because the no shoulder fold has more flared lettering. So if you look at the I on DEI, there's almost like a serif on there. The shoulder fold variety has a slimmer I. So this is definitely the no shoulder fold, but there is another variation within the no shoulder fold we can look at, and that's in the date. And so I'll throw it up here. And there isn't a wide or narrow, but there is a small and a large date. And so this is the small date variety. Basically, the 5 and the 3 are smaller than the other version, and they're actually fairly far away from the beads along the rim. The larger date, this tail of the 5 and the tail of the 3 come down longer. The same thing with the 9. So they come quite a bit closer to the beads. So that's what we have, is the no shoulder fold small date variety. And just for comparison, I brought out a large date variety from my collection. This is actually the shoulder fold version. But this one here, you can see the 9, the 5, and the 3 come a lot closer to the beads. And if I flip it over, the fold that we're looking for, again, it's really hard to tell on here, but basically you can see part of it here. This is not the best version, but if I look at the eye, it is far less flared than the other one that I'll just pull up again, where you can see there's more of a flare on the ends of those. So that's the differences to look at for these ones. Once we get later into the 50s, there are really no variations to look for to speak of, but we did get a 58, and this is one that actually does have one. So it's a minor variation. It commands a little bit of a premium, but essentially it's just an error where on the coin you would see in the date a dot. Actually, it's under the A. You would see a dot under the A, so it is the 1958 dot This is just the normal 1958 that we got here. Our very last coin is this gorgeous 1963 with a deep mirror finish. This is probably from a proof-like set. This is gorgeous. The only thing you can see a fingerprint there, unfortunately, and there's really no easy way to get that off. But you can see the image of the queen has a bit of a frosted appearance, and that the face of the coin is a deep mirror finish. It's gorgeous. It's certainly better than what I have, but it gives you an idea that some of these coins you can get in fantastic shape, even in the scrap bin. And so I'm probably going to flip this up and put it in my book, because this is a better example of what I already have. So what I'll do now is we've got everything kind of laid out here now that we've I've cataloged everything. Just I like to keep track of what I've got. I've stacked it up. We've looked at the differences. I've added any to my collection that need to be added. Now we're going to throw these in some tubes and see how our stack is looking. Okay, we've got these guys all tubed up here and added to our stack. These 50-cent or $half containers are holding each 21. If I put another one in there, it just gets a little too close to the top and I can't close the lid. So we've got 2 full ones here and a partial. And over here, this 10-cent tube is pretty much full between what I had before and what I've just added. We still got some room in our quarters, and that 1966 looks really great in my collection there. And so I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like. Subscribe to my channel, CAD Roll Hunter. Definitely check out my other videos. See what else I've got. I have videos coming out regularly. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.